Hello, thanks for joining me for 2nd Samuel in summertime. Today is Monday, June 14th, and this is the 14th chapter of the book of 2nd Samuel. So, the story continues. Absalom is in exile. He has fled because his father is upset that he killed his brother Amnon over the rape of Tamar. And this is what happens. So remember Joab? Joab has the brother, and he was the other one. He was one of the generals, and when they were fighting, saw that he was this ally, but then his one brother got killed by Abner, Saw's main general, when he hit him with a spear. Anyway, Joab is still this main guy in the king's court, and he hatches a plan. Now, he perceived that David's heart was yearning for his son. And so he hatches a plan. He gets a wise woman, and he kind of hires her, I guess he hires her to pretend to be a mourner and to give this story to the king. And so she goes to the king, and she says, I'm a widow. I have 2 sons. My sons got into a fight, and no one could intervene. One of them struck the other and killed him. Now everybody is out for blood for my one remaining son. And I don't want to give him up because he is my one remaining son, sole person to support me and heir for my dead husband. And so David, of course, being the arbiter of justice that he is, and she calls him the angel of God twice, which means a benevolent arbiter, a wise arbiter of justice, a wise judge, a wise person over the people. So he's an angel of God twice by this woman's confession. And he says, he tells the woman, as the Lord lives, not one hair on your sons shall fall to the ground. So I am going to protect your son. Of course, I'll protect your son. And so the woman says, well, give me permission to speak freely, king. And he says, yes. She says, why then have you planned such a thing against the people of God? For in giving this decision, the king convicts himself, inasmuch as the king does not bring his banished one home again, meaning Absalom. Well, this is so similar to what happens in chapter 11 and 12 with the Bathsheba killing Uriah the Hittite, and then Nathan coming to the king with this parable of the lamb and the rich guy, and the king being incensed at this injustice. And then the woman says to him, so if you would protect my son for the heir, why have you done such an evil thing to banish this one of your household? And he perceives, the king, King David, perceives that she's in cahoots with Joab. Love it, because I was like, no, I didn't see that one coming. He says right away to her, don't hold anything back from me. The king answered, do not withhold from me anything I ask you. The woman said, let the Lord speak. And the king says, is the hand of Joab with you in all this? I mean, he saw it. I know he's a bright guy. They're both bright. He perceives that it's Joab's business on this. And they're all probably sitting there going, ooh, what's he going to say? What's he going to do? And he is like, you're right. He is my son. I am yearning for him in my heart. Thank you, Joab. Thank you, duplicitous woman, with your acting. I'm going to be okay. So they invite Absalom to come back. Then the king said to Joab, very well, I grant this. Go bring back the young man Absalom. Joab prostrated himself with his face on the ground and did obeisance and blessed the king. And Joab said, today your servant knows I have found favor in your sight. So this is good. So the relationship between Joab and King David is still good. He's looking out for King David, just like Nathan did. And so now Absalom's back, and he's at his own house. The king says, don't bring him into my presence yet. Just send him to his own home. So he's at his own home for a full 2 years again. He says, "Own home in Jerusalem for a full 2 years." Now, there's a little bit in here, there's a little chapter, three verses, where it's 2 verses actually, where he says, no, it's 3, it's 25, 26, and 27, where it's described how handsome Absalom is. He is handsome from the tip of his toe to the top of his head, and no one is as beautiful as Absalom, and his hair is heavy. I mean, I guess that's like, they still had male pattern baldness back then. So a man with a lot of hair is a rarity and to be thought of as beautiful, I suppose. I myself don't like a lot of hair because it gets in the way, so I cut mine short. But Absalom grew his every year, and then he would cut it off at the end of the year, and it would be so heavy. And he lived the full 2 years in Jerusalem without coming to the king's presence. And finally, he just got antsy. And he kept saying to Joab, bring me before the king, bring me before the king. And he wouldn't do it. And so he got an idea. He said, oh, I'm going to set his field on fire. So he had his servants set Joab's field on fire. Finally, Joab came over and says, what are you doing? Don't burn my field. He said, bring me into the king's presence. He said, oh. So like if you want to get someone's attention in the ancient Near East, just set something of theirs on fire. That's just how to do it. It's good. That's what this is for. Maybe this is the lesson from this story. No, there's a lot more. So he says, why did I come here from Geshur? Just get it over with. If I go into the king's presence and he kills me, he kills me. If he doesn't, he doesn't. I just need to do something. I just can't sit here in my house in Jerusalem anymore in limbo. And then Joab went to the king and told him, and he summoned Absalom. So he came to the king and prostrated himself with his face on the ground. And you got to wait until the very, very end of the chapter before the king. And the king kissed Absalom. So David forgives his son Absalom and brings him back. Finally, after a duplicitous woman setting a field on fire, all this stuff is going on, and finally we get to the punch. Now, the lesson of this, again, there's a type going on here, the literary type, where you got to have this woman of Tekoa who brings this story to the king. You got to have this character, this Joab and this woman of Tekoa, and they're in cahoots, and they're trying to figure out how to trick the king, maybe not trick the king, but let the king see that his exile, his banishment of Absalom is folly. His heart yearns for him, and he needs to call Absalom home and make him his son again and restore Absalom to his place. So that is the intention there, and that is how they do it. But they just go about it in such a lengthy, protracted way. It almost seems a lot like if you read the book of Esther, the way she is trying to save the people. And so she says, would you like to come for dinner? And the king says, yes. And she has a dinner for him. And it's wonderful. And she doesn't ask him. And she's like, I invited you to dinner to ask you if you'd like to go to dinner again. She just like, and why is that? Is it hesitancy? It must be cultural. It must be the way you have to go about things when you're dealing with a king. I would imagine something like that. So that's the chapter, the 14th chapter. And I'm thinking, this has got a good lesson for us about how to deal with family matters. Sometimes a bludgeon over the head isn't the best way to get through to a father whose heart is sore and sad. Maybe a nice story put before him, maybe set up a mirror before his face and say, ooh, if you would do this justice for this family, why not do justice for your own family? I like the approach. It takes patience, but I like the approach. I hope you have a beautiful day. God bless.